Game day has arrived for the Orlando Magic, and they want you to know their defense is better than ever today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 6th. It will be October 7th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it is officially game day for the Orlando Magic. We'll break down what to expect when the Orlando Magic take on the New Orleans Pelicans, plus why the Magic's defense could be even better this year. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Like I mentioned, we will get to the Magic's first preseason game against the New Orleans Pelicans, what to expect, what to watch later on in the show, but this is the perfect time to remind you that we will be going live, or I will be going live at 7 p.m. Eastern time on Monday night to recap everything we've learned from 48 minutes of Orlando Magic preseason basketball. It is the first game. We will overreact. We will underreact. I'll tell you what was really concerning, what was good, what was bad, all and everything in between. Live Monday night at 7 p.m. Magic basketball is back. The game is going to air on Pelicans.com. So even if you do not have League Pass, you should be able to access the game on the New Orleans Pelicans website. 1:30 p.m. tip-off. We'll all get a chance to watch. But obviously, and I want to make this really, really clear, I will reiterate this in our final segment when we talk a little bit more about the game. It's one preseason game. It's not the end of the world. The result is the least important thing to happen. But having said that, there's a lot of excitement to get back into the swing of things, to see how this team looks against another opponent, to see, as Jamal Mosley puts it constantly, to see carryover from training camp into these games. These games don't matter except that they do, if that makes sense. They are an extension of camp, as Mosley likes to say. And obviously, I think there's a lot of burning questions about the Orlando Magic. It's the offense, it's the playmaking, it's the shooting, it's Franz's shot, it's Paolo's shot, it's all of these little things. But everything that we talk about when it comes to Orlando Magic is underpinned by one big thing. And that is that the Orlando Magic have one of the best defensive teams in the entire league. It is underpinned by this fact that the Magic believe that they will be able to stop teams. Jet Howard even joked when asked about the first preseason game, our scrimmages aren't very high scoring. We're going to be very excited to not go up against our defense. Pelicans were a solid defensive team last year, so it's still a little bit of a challenge, but they're certainly very excited to see how they look against somebody else. And look, I'm not expecting the Magic to be locked down on defense quite yet. Like, they're obviously kind of gearing themselves up. They're slowly moving the wheel and getting closer and closer to the team that they will be in 2 weeks when they head down to Miami to face the Miami Heat. But the Magic are confident that their defense is better. That's the big thing. The Magic, through all of it, knowing their offense, knowing their defense, knowing who they are, believe that their defense, ranked number 3 in the league in defensive rating last season, will be better this season. Will be able to match what they did this season. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's going to be a lot of fun. Just no bones about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. As Cole Anthony said earlier this week, the one thing that they know is they have the personnel. They have the players who love to defend. Like, I think there are 4 potential all-defensive team players on this team. Jalen Suggs obviously was on the defensive team last year. Jonathan Isaac is one of the best defenders in the league. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope got about a dozen all-defensive team votes last year. I think Franz Wagner is severely underrated as a defender. I'm really excited to see him play some defense. This is a team that knows that their standard of play, that their core identity is their defense. And obviously last year was a huge success, but they had the worst offense in the league that made the playoffs. They know they made the playoffs on the back of their defense. And if they're going to move forward, if they're going to move far in this year's playoffs and move far in this season, it starts with their defense. Their defense has to lead the way. And to this team's credit, it really does feel like the entire team has embraced defense, that this entire team has embraced this identity, and this entire team knows and is committed to defense. Even the players who are not necessarily good defenders. You hear Cole Anthony talk a lot about defense and about how he wants to improve on defense and knows he's got some cushion behind him, but has found ways to impact the game defensively. No offense to Cole, love you, bud. No one's going to confuse Cole Anthony with an elite defender or a high-level defender, but his willingness to commit on that end and his willingness to continue to improve on that end just shows you the strength of this team's culture and the strength of what they understand this team to be. At the end of the day, we've talked a lot this week of training camp before we get to the preseason. We've talked a lot this training camp about standards. The Magic aren't just playing their opponent every week or every game or every day. They are playing their standard. They're playing what they believe is necessary for their success. This is what playoff teams do, by the way. They don't play the opponent to a certain extent. They don't play the game in front of them. They're playing knowing if we do the right things over and over and over and over again, we're going to get the results that we want. We know what we need to do to succeed. And maybe it's only 7 out of 10 times, but 8 out of 10 times, if we do these things successfully, we are going to win. There are very few teams that can beat us. And if I haven't said this at all during the last week, there is not a game that the Magic should go into this year that they do not believe they can win, because they know their defense is good enough to give them a chance to win. They know that if they play defense with the intensity and physicality that they know they can reach, they are good enough to win. And that's a powerful thing. More than anything else, though, what the Magic gained from last season, what the Magic gained from going through the playoffs last year, is a confidence in this path. We talked about the Magic way in the last episode or a couple episodes ago. What the Magic have learned is they have this way to play. They have this identity. And if they play that style, if they do the things they are supposed to do, they're going to win basketball games. And the fact that they have embraced the hardest thing to do, it's easy to score points. I know the Magic don't always make it seem that way, but everybody can have a really good night. Defense travels. Defense travels into the playoffs. How does a team with the worst offensive rating in the entire postseason take another really good offensive team to 7 games in a playoff series? How does that happen? It's because of the defense. It's because the Magic have an elite and strengthening defense. The scary part about all this is how young the Magic are. The scary part of all this is the Magic firmly believe they are going to get better. They finished 3rd in defensive rating last year. They firmly believe they are about to take another step defensively, that they are about to be even better on that end. And that should terrify the entire league, because guess what? Jonathan Isaac bulked up to 250. He is, at least 240. He says 250. Magic say 240. He's bulked up and should be able to play center a little bit more, giving the Magic some more versatile lineups. The Magic have this room to experiment. They have guys they could throw in. Even Jet Howard spoke on Saturday about hoping to show that he has taken a step defensively. Remember, when the Magic drafted Jet Howard, I took him off my board because I was just like, this guy doesn't defend at anywhere near the level the Magic would want from a rookie. I don't know if the shooting is going to overcome that. Well, we all saw at Summer League, Jet's not a great defender yet, but he's willing and he's grown a lot on that end. And to me, seeing that up and down this roster makes me believe them. It makes me believe them that the Magic's defense is about to get a whole lot better. It's not because necessarily individual players got better. Obviously, you're pairing Jalen Suggs and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. For the first time on Monday, we're going to get to see that duo go up against two elite guards, DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum, at least two elite scoring guards. We're going to get to see that duo play against an offensive duo that is worth their reputation, that is going to test their reputation. It's the preseason. We're not going to draw conclusions, but that's exciting. The Magic are better defensively just by adding a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and then adding Gary Harris back to the end of the bench, because Gary Harris, while maybe not a disruptive stopper, is a really smart and good defender. And he's going to make that bench defense that much better, just like Anthony Black will make that bench defense just that much better. But again, it's not just the personnel that makes this defense so good. It's the confidence that they have and the fact that they know that this is who they are. There is no getting around this team's identity. There is no dancing around what this team is about and what they value at the end of the day. There is just no denying it at this point. And so we are going to see the Magic play this way. We are going to see the Magic play at this elevated level. And it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to see how all these pieces come together. The Magic are in a very good situation, to say the least. The Magic are in a spot that should excite them and believe that they're going to take another step forward. Of course, defense was not the only place the Orlando Magic were elite last year. We'll talk about the Magic's other superpower and why they believe that got better this year. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at BetterHelp. Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us. But what about those fears that don't involve zombies, vampires, and ghosts? Therapy is a great tool for facing your fears and finding ways to overcome them. It's great for identifying what you're really afraid of. After all, horror movies are just a reflection of what scares us in society. Smile is coming out. That's a movie that's about the fakeness of social media smiles and how it's really killing us on the inside that we can't express our actual emotions. It's also about a demon that is haunting people. It's a fun movie. Therapy can help you find what's really making you afraid and teach you how to face those fears. Stop holding yourself back. I've used therapy throughout various points in my life. It has always helped me identify the real issues in my life, made me face them down, and if not overcome them, learn to wrestle with them so that at least I'm in control of the situation. Those horror movies, they're not always in control. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Obviously, the Orlando Magic are more than just their defense. You know, they have Franz Wagner, one of the best efficient young scorers in the league. They have Paolo Banchero, one of the best just pure bucket getters in the league, despite all the questions that everyone seems to have about him. There's a lot more to the Orlando Magic than just their defense, even though their defense is the elite thing that keeps them very much in the race and keeps them doing everything that they want to do. The other superpower, the other place, though, that the Magic are an elite team, a team that is so dangerous, is their depth. The Orlando Magic are one of the deepest teams in the league and one of the most successful bench teams in the league. Last year, Orlando finished fourth in the league in bench scoring, averaging 41.5 points per game off their bench. Their most used and top bench lineups, or second unit lineups, however you want to say it, dominated their competition. The lineup of Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Joe Ingles, Jonathan Isaac, and Mo Wagner, a lineup, by the way, without Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero, had a +4 net rating, 105.8, 101.8 offensive defensive rating split in 102 minutes last year. Their best lineup, which took Gary Harris out for Franz Wagner, was a +21.1 net rating, 111.4 offensive rating, 90.3 defensive rating in 81 minutes. That lineup was ninth best in terms of net rating among all lineups that logged at least 81 minutes. So obviously snuck them in there, made the parameters nice for you, but still, all lineups, that includes starting lineups. And while, yes, that is the low end of that, it says something. We don't need the numbers to tell us this. Observationally, the Magic came back from a lot of early deficits with strong second quarters led by that bench group. The Magic won a lot of games with big runs from that second unit. Go back to game 4 and the run that the Magic put on the Cleveland Cavaliers early in that second quarter, or against the Milwaukee Bucks on the final game of the season. The Magic's bench was a superpower, was something that powered this team, and depth was a key story for the season. As much as you might be upset with Jamal Mosley for sticking with 10-man rotations even deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the season, as much as you might be upset with that decision and that process that he went through, there were numbers to suggest, like, yeah, this works. Why deviate from it? Why change it? And sure, playoffs are another matter. I think the depth started to show some cracks there, but to get you through a regular season, the Magic have everything they still need. Yes, even after losing Markelle Fultz and Joe Ingles, the Magic have a lot of players that they should be able to trust. It's obviously Jonathan Isaac makes all the Magic's defensive numbers look really good off the bench. He is a big part of that, but now you add a great shooter in Gary Harris to that bench group. You know, again, say what you want about Gary Harris as a starter, he's going to work much better with that bench group, and he's a solid defender on top of that. If you're going 9-man rotation or lineups with Franz Wagner in the mix with him, even better. Give you another playmaker and creator. It's Cole Anthony, who was streaky last year, but can have big games and be a big-time scorer. It's putting a great young player like Anthony Black or Tristan Da Silva or Jet Howard or Caleb Houston. All of these players that the Magic should feel are options. Now, I won't sit here and deny it. They've got a lot to prove, especially those young guys. If the bench is going to be as good as it was last year, Anthony Black is going to have to take a step up offensively that he didn't do last year, and the Magic didn't really let him do. Even AP would say, like, he didn't get the chance to be on the ball as much. He learned a lot being off the ball, but he's eager to be back on the ball and attacking downhill a lot more. I think we will see a very different Anthony Black this year. Again, I think there'll be ups and downs. I don't think it'll be perfect, but we'll see a very different Anthony Black this year. We know that Tristan Da Silva should be a guy that can make an impact pretty quickly. Caleb Houston, from things that I've heard, he has taken a step forward, and if he can be consistent as a three-point shooter, that makes him all the more dangerous with his size and buy-in on the defensive end. The point, and then Mo Wagner, obviously a great scorer off the bench, an instigator, a great screener, a great roller, can finish in the post. And if he's not working out, Goga Bitadze is a fantastic defender if you need that too. And if Jonathan Isaac's improved any of his offensive skills now that he's had a healthy summer, the Magic's depth continues to be a major strength. And, knock on wood, should any injuries hit, the Magic have players that they should, and that's important to say, should be able to trust to step in and fill in for this team. Why does this Magic team work? That's kind of the theme of this episode is, at its base level, why does this team work? And obviously it's top end guys like Paolo. It's top end guys like Franz. It's that elite defense. You have to be elite at something to be elite in this league. The Magic have an elite defense. The other thing, though, is their second unit does not let up. You do not get to take a break just because Paolo Banchero's out of the game. Or even if both Paolo and Franz are out of the game, the Magic still find ways to create, still find ways to put pressure, still find ways to prevent you from scoring, to be perfectly honest, because Jonathan Isaac is coming off the freaking bench. The Magic have that in their back pocket. And while you can't count on things to go, year over year, consistency, you got to build that back up. the Magic should feel confident that they can run a similar rotation, a similar substitution pattern this year, that they won't have to change too much up. They should feel confident that if Wendell Carter has to miss games, Goga Patadze will be ready to go, even if he hasn't played for a few weeks, to start and maintain what the Magic have built. That, if Franz sprains an ankle like he did last year, Caleb Houston can step into the lineup and give the team some necessary shooting. Obviously, roles will have to change elsewhere to make up for that loss, but the Magic have players they trust. And that's ultimately what depth is about. That's ultimately why this is so important and why the Magic are gaining so much from doing this. Depth is one of the Magic's superpowers. It is one of the things that helps them tremendously in the regular season. Again, the playoffs are a different animal. I think Mosley leaned a little too much on his depth, and some of those lineups, their weaknesses were able to get exploited in a way that they would not get exploited in the regular season. That's something to live and learn by for next April. But for now, here in October and November, this depth not only like iron sharpens iron and helps you in training camp to give you more internal competition, especially for a team that's so closely knit. And while a lot of guys are fighting for playing time and fighting for attention, there's a sense that everybody is for the team, that everyone knows I succeed if the team succeeds. And my number is going to get called. I say this all the time. An 82-game season is a long time. Everybody on this roster is going to get an opportunity. That opportunity may come very quickly. It may take a while. But when that opportunity comes, that margin for error is low. You do have to perform if you want to stay in the rotation, if you want to be that trusted option. Caleb Houston had a couple really big games. He had trust. Anthony Black struggled in that game against the Knicks and the Pacers when Jalen Suggs was out in February. He lost a lot of trust, and he had to sit on the bench and wait. This is what happens during the course of a season. Every single one of these guys, if they're not in the rotation now, they will get time in the rotation at some point. And the question is whether they will gain trust from that opportunity when it comes. Will they make the coach look stupid for not playing them? That's a thing. And that's okay if it does, because you have to learn these things. But the Magic's depth is still there. It is still a major strength for this team. And there is no reason to think the Magic's depth is going anywhere this season. We've made it, though. We're finally getting some Orlando Magic basketball. What I'm watching for as the Magic take on the New Orleans Pelicans coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, like Trevor Lawrence is about to have a career high in pass yards, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Plus, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. If the NFL or football is not your thing, basketball is here. You can get all the latest odds for the basketball season, including the Orlando Magic at over under 47.5 wins, including the Orlando Magic winning the Southeast Division at -140, or the Orlando Magic to make the NBA Finals to win the Eastern Conference at plus 1,800. By the way, that's tied for 5th among odds in the Eastern Conference. So the Magic are seemingly popular. Or if you want to get a head start, you can get the Magic +1 against the Miami Heat on opening night. Or if you're a real sicko, the Magic are 2-point underdogs against the New Orleans Pelicans in Monday's game. Do not bet on preseason, please. But if you're a sicko, they have that too. It's all there on FanDuel. Plus, you get the $200 bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. Check it out today at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. We have finally made it. We are here at the beginning of Orlando Magic preseason. The first Orlando Magic game since May 5th. 5 long months without Orlando Magic basketball. And I hate to say, don't get too excited. It is just preseason. The Orlando Magic have a Monday matinee against the New Orleans Pelicans at the Smoothie King Center. Why is the game at 1:30? I was told it was because of Monday Night Football, but Monday Night Football the Saints are on the road for Monday Night Football, so it is still very, very confusing. especially considering the teams make their own preseason schedules. I don't know why they didn't just flip this. Maybe they should have had a Monday game here at the Kia Center. I don't know what's going on at the Kia Center, but that's neither here nor there. 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, we will get the Orlando Magic against the New Orleans Pelicans. Thus, I'm trying to get this episode up early for all of you. Okay, first off, let's get this out of the way. A, don't bet on this game. Don't ever bet on preseason games. Don't be stupid. But the last thing that's important in this game is who wins. I do not care who wins and loses. I would like the Magic to win while their starters are in. I usually keep track of like first half stats because I know that's when those stats are a little bit more significant as I break down preseason, but the result is not important. Get that first through. I do think it is important that the team is competitive. I don't want to see them down 20, with their starters in. I don't think that's a good sign, obviously. So really, I think Jamal Mosley's right that this is really an extension of training camp. This is about taking what you've learned and worked on in training camp and carrying it over into the games, carrying it over into these situations, into these scenarios, seeing how you match up with another team and really how you improvise and adjust to what they're doing. Mosley had this really fun comment on Saturday saying, it's tough in camp because when a team makes a mistake, it's a mistake for one side of the ball, but it actually means the other side of the ball did their job. They forced the mistake. And so you have to balance highlighting the good that one team is doing while correcting what went wrong with what the other team is doing. And it's just kind of this push and pull. The preseason games give you a chance to put that kind of all on the table. You're not so much focused on the opponent. Like, I'm not worried. I don't care what Zion's doing. I don't care what DeJounte Murray's doing. They're just kind of roadblocks in the way. You're not game planning specifically to attack them in this kind of a game. So I think it's important to see, okay, what are the Magic doing well? What are they setting up well? They miss shots, so what? They turn the ball over. As long as they're like aggressive turnovers or even miscommunication turnovers. If Jalen Suggs is trying to throw a cut and the player and like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope doesn't cut, that's a point of like, okay, we just got to get on the same page. Like, I'm okay with those kinds of turnovers. It's the turnovers I don't like in preseason are sloppy turnovers where you're just kind of throwing the ball around, trying to make crazy plays, trying to force the ball into things. If I can understand your thought process and say, oh, you're trying to do the simple thing and there's just a miscommunication, or you're trying to push the ball up court and a guy breaks off a cut or isn't where you expected him to be, that's all stuff that you have to kind of learn and go through. Those turnovers have to happen, and that's why we have preseason to kind of make those mistakes. Having said that, again, keep the turnovers as low as you can. I'm a big believer that you should be getting better as the preseason moves on, and Orlando is a weird preseason schedule. They play Monday in New Orleans, Wednesday in San Antonio, Friday back home against New Orleans, and they don't play again until next Friday against Philadelphia. So we're going to have a lot of time to kind of digest these first three games. And depending on who plays in that last game is really the dress rehearsal. It's really take everything you've learned over the last week and let's just see the progress that we've made. Again, it takes time to kind of get into rhythm and get into shape. And so, get into game shape. They're in shape, get into game shape. And so that's, to me, that's what I'm watching for is I want to just honestly, I want to just see that you're going in the right direction. Like, I've been watching Franz Wagner during shooting drills all week. I think his shot form looks a lot better. It looks more compact. It looks quicker, less thought involved. He's starting the ball a little bit higher. So I think that's helping with his arc. He's looked good. Like in the shooting drills that I've seen, he's looked good. I've not seen him play, but in shooting drills, he looks good. I want to see him shoot with confidence. I don't care if he goes 0 for 5. I'm sure fans will freak out if he goes 0 for 5. But I want to see him shoot with confidence. And I want to see the Magic get him good looks. Like, again, I care less about making or missing shots in the first preseason game because you're a little juiced up. You're a little hyped. You're in a different gym. It's different. I want to see them work to get good looks. Like, I remember last year's opener against New Orleans, I began noting like they're taking a lot of corner threes. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, the Magic in the first half took the same number of corner threes that they took for an entire game last year. I was like, that's something to keep an eye on. That's interesting. Those are quality shots. Those are good shots. It's about doing and thinking the right things right now. rather than actually like executing them for points and making shots. Like, we got time to tie those sticks together. It's about doing and thinking the right things and then beginning to learn how to adjust and how to interact in game space. You know, I think it's been interesting when we've talked to players about practice, and a lot of them have just said, you know, it's just hooping, guys. Like, it's not complicated. We just want to get out there and play a little bit, because that's where the experimenting begins. Like, we know what the Magic want us to do. We know the roles that they want us to play. Now you get to see like how they begin to kind of find their comfort within those roles. And so this first preseason game, especially, it's just beginning to understand, okay, this is what the team's trying to do. This is what they're trying to get at. This is what they're trying to be. And then it's just about fine tuning it and figuring out, okay, how do we expand? How do we wrinkle this? How do we keep moving forward with this idea that we're putting forward? It's, again, like, we'll talk about this on our live show on Monday. You kind of don't know until you see it. Like, I don't care about the result. Like, I'm going to just tell you straight up, like, you know, if Tristan Da Silva hits a game-winning three, fantastic. Winning's better than losing. I don't care. Like, I don't care. You know, my goal is to start writing at halftime, because the second half is usually not as important. You know, I don't, especially because it's a weird tip-off time. I kind of see the Magic being a little more conservative and treating the San Antonio game and the Friday game a little bit more important. I imagine one of these three first games the Magic will not treat as important as the other ones, but we'll see which ones that turns out being. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. Again, I haven't watched them play. Like, I am as curious as you are to see what they look like and see just kind of where they're at. We know how this Magic team's supposed to play. We saw it last year. So we have that frame of reference. Like, we know what success looks like. And so I want to see this team inching back towards that. I want to see those familiar things, those familiar plays, those familiar sets, those familiar, that familiar vibe of the way that they play, and the familiar, maybe not intensity because it's preseason, but the kind of familiar way that they play. I want to start seeing hints of that, or at least a full set of that. And then see, okay, this is how they're expanding. This is how they're changing. This is how players have begun to get better. It's about being in the right spots right now more than making the shot. Because again, it's early in the preseason process. I think there'll be some tired legs. It's the first game. You know, it's a weird start time, especially too. It's gonna be something a little bit different. And so we'll see how the Magic look ultimately. And again, we'll break it all down on our live show on Monday. Again, that'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places on podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to Locked On Magic, for your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Become a fantasy basketball expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Josh Lloyd. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Like I said, we will be going live Monday night, October 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern time to recap the Magic's first preseason game over the New Orleans Pelicans. I'll take your questions on the YouTube page. Will be YouTube only on that. The audio will come out, not live. It'll come out after, but go to the YouTube page at Locked On Magic and log in at 7 p.m. I'll send out a link once I'm done writing and set up the page, but it's going to be a fun time as the Orlando Magic take on the New Orleans Pelicans. Until then, though, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Phil Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.